it's Brennan. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another video. Today we are going to go through all of my favorite books from the second quarter of the year. So I tried to narrow this down to like 5 favorite books from April to June. My favorite books between April and the end of June. And I have like 8 on here. So I have 5 favorites and a couple honorable mentions. These are not going to be in any particular order. And now this first one though, it may be my favorite book that I've read so far this year. And that is Beard Science by Penny Reed. Really, I could put this whole Winston Brothers series up here, but I've read the first 3 and Beard Science is the 3rd book and it's just my favorite. So I'm going to talk about it. But in talking about it, I also have to talk about the premise of the series. This is an adult romance series. It's really funny. It's pretty steamy. And it is set in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, which is from kind of the area where I'm from, except in Kentucky. This Winston Brothers series follows a large family, and there are 6 brothers and 1 sister, and each book is one of our family members' books. But the 3rd book in this series is Cletus's book. And Cletus plays a big role in the 1st and 2nd books. And he is like this socially awkward, blunt, mischievous, genius mastermind. He's like nefarious, but also like really endearing and good, but also like serves himself. That's how I'm going to describe Cletus. But this is Cletus's book, and his love interest is Jennifer Sylvester, and we have met her in the other books too, and she is this town's banana cake queen. She's in her early 20s and Cletus is in like his mid 20s or so, if you like to know the ages of your characters in your books. But Jennifer has lived a very sheltered life. She definitely tries to please her parents. Her mom like dresses her and manages her banana cake queen persona, and they have like this big online presence, and they own a lodge in this town, and Jennifer just bakes things. She's not even like technically employed by this company. She just spends 80-hour weeks baking things, and she doesn't even like really love it, but she does it to please her parents, and it's very profitable. So Jennifer's mom is like an heiress basically, and then her dad is their high school principal, but they have homeschooled Jennifer and Jennifer's brother Isaac, but Isaac has gotten wrapped up in the Iron Wraiths, which is like an underlying plot in this whole series. There's like this biker gang in their town, and our Winston family has some ties to it through their dad, but the family tries to like stay out of them because they're like bad business. But anyway, this is Cletus and Jennifer's romance. And Cletus and Jennifer have grown up in the same town, but Cletus has never really noticed her, but Jennifer notices everything. She just like is kind of like this wallflower in society, even though her mom makes her up to like be this bleach blonde, perfect Barbie doll baker person. Like her mom makes her a character basically, and Jennifer just kind of goes along with it to please everyone. Jennifer's none with that. And she gets some blackmail on Cletus, who himself is a notorious blackmailer. And she wants him to help her find a husband. She doesn't want to live at home anymore. She wants to be her own person. She wants to have her own family. And she enlists Cletus to help her find someone. But Cletus is like, let's not find someone. Let's just like make you be more marketable. I don't want to say it like that. He helps her to become more of who she is and like show that on the outside and not just be like this character for her family. I've talked about this in like every video I've filmed so far this year, I feel like. But I am loving the like very specific trope of our character butting heads with their parents, and not even just like butting heads with their parents, but their parents being like the bad guys, like holding them back, no good redeemable qualities in them. I've liked that in my books, and that is Jennifer's parents. Her mom's a little bit redeemable, but her dad, there's like nothing for him. Anyway, I loved this book. I loved these characters. What I loved so much about this is that there's like no miscommunication. Do they have blackmail on each other? Sure, but they are so upfront. They're so honest. There's no miscommunication, and that's refreshing in a book to me, in a romance book especially. But I loved this. This is like beyond 5 stars for me. I guess that's me saying this is my favorite romance book that I've ever read. You should read the series in order though if you're interested, but they are so consumable. They're so good. Would highly recommend. Penny Reed is becoming a favorite for me. The second book I have to talk about is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this genre, which I would call historical fiction, literary historical fiction, is not one that I read a lot, but maybe I should because I loved this book. If you've read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, then you have met Mick Riva, who was one one of Evelyn's 7 husbands. But this book follows the Riva children. He has 4 children that we follow in this. And the main storyline is 1983. It's like the early 1980s. They're in Malibu, California, and they're like a surfer family. Like his kids have kind of made their name by being like these very aesthetically pleasing surfer kids in the 80s. So the atmosphere is great. And in our present day timeline, the Riva children throw a party at the end of every summer, and we are following like the start of the day of this party, through the party, and then the aftermath of the party. But then we also have a past timeline of Mick meeting their mom June and their relationship and their marriage, and just kind of how much these kids have had to go through in their lifetimes, and how they have bonded with each other and what they have done for each other, especially Nina, their oldest sister, what she has given up to care for her younger siblings. This book made me want to cry. This book made me angry. It made me happy. It made me hopeful. It made me proud of our characters. I just felt a lot. I'm learning if I like a book, I want to feel a lot in that book. I don't know how to gush about this more. Like, I feel like my words don't do this justice. We are just following these lives and all these little stories of all these characters, and it's just so good. I was so invested. I listened to the audiobook. Julia Whalen reads the audiobook. It's so good. I would highly recommend this. I just feel like this is a good book for anyone and everyone to read. The next book I actually have the physical copy of to talk about. This is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. This is a historical romance. We're in London in 1872 is like our primary timeline, but it starts in the 1850s, and we start at an orphanage with these children. I think they're like 8 and 10. It's our main character Farah and her childhood companion, best friend, first love, Dugan. They end up at an orphanage together, and they just develop this really strong bond as children. They're there for a couple years together, and they like fake marry each other. They have like a fake wedding when they're like 10 and 12 probably. And then some stuff happens and they get separated. And then Farah, our main character, believes that Dugan got sent to prison and died in prison. So present day, Farah is in her like later 20s, and she is portraying herself to society as a widow, and she has taken Dugan's last name, Mackenzie. So in present day society, she's Farah Mackenzie, and she is like a clerk at Scotland Yard, but she actually like kind of helps them solve some mysteries at Scotland Yard. Mysteries, like that's very romanticized. But she works at Scotland Yard, and one day she gets called to their like interrogation room, and her detective is interrogating a very infamous, notorious, kind of vigilante criminal named Dorian Blackwell. And he's very wealthy. He has done some shady stuff to make all of his money, but he's incredibly wealthy, like uber wealthy. And the plot of this book is that she is actually being reunited with her childhood love, but he has taken on the persona of a different man. But she does not know that. So he has been scarred a little bit, and they've just grown up so much that she does not recognize him, but he knows who she is. And so he like gets out of his prison thing. Like he really only is there to kind of find her. So he gets released or whatever, and he kidnaps her. But he kidnaps her in a way that he's like, I'm protecting you. This is for your own good. You're being kidnapped by me. And then he marries her for the same reason. So he talks her into marrying him, and she becomes Lady Blackwell, and she's the wife of this notorious criminal now. But he convinces her to marry him because he's telling her that people are out to get her. So she has a mysterious past. Like they were at the orphanage together, but she actually had very prestigious parents who died, and now their estate has gone unclaimed because she's not acting like she's Farah Mackenzie, not Farah whatever her maiden name was. She's not going to take their estate. But someone wants their estate, and they also want to kill her so that they can then kind of impersonate someone to be her. So Dorian/Dugan is protecting her, and then obviously like she comes to find out who he is, and it's just like a lot, and it's really good, and it's very actiony, and it's pretty steamy, and there's a lot of like food descriptions in here. And this is the first book in a series. Wow. I think this is her Victorian Rebels series, and we meet the like assassin guy who's going to be the main character in the second book, The Hunter. I have it right here. Look at that cover. Isn't that gorgeous? But yeah, this was just so good. I think I'm just like really feeling the historicals lately, so this has been a favorite of mine for the last few months. And then I have to talk about Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I read this per Kirsten from Kirsten's Corner. I'll link her channel below. I have a vlog where I read some of Kirsten's favorite books. This is a young adult romance. I have a video talking about it, like I said. And we are following Pepper and Jack, and this is a book about grilled cheese. But Pepper and Jack are both high school seniors in New York. Pepper's family is kind of like new money. That's such like a historical term. Not new money. They just had this burger shop, but now it's turned more into like a burger chain. So they have like found wealth in this burger chain, and then Jack and his family have like a very traditional New York deli. And Pepper's burger chain releases a new grilled cheese sandwich that is the exact same as Jack's family's namesake kind of grilled cheese. And so their families are kind of fighting. Okay, so like the thing of this, it's called Tweet Cute, right? So Pepper starts running the Instagram account for her family's restaurant, and then Jack starts running his family's restaurants in Facebook. No, not Facebook, not Instagram, Twitter. I hope I said that. Wow. I'm like a very young millennial. Like I'm not quite Gen Z, and I feel like very not in touch with today's youngsters, and I feel like I show that sometimes. Anyway, this is their romance, and it's just so cute. And what I love so much about it is that there's a lot of food talk. I love food descriptions in my books, but it's also Pepper and Jack trying to find themselves and do things that they like. And you know how like in families you have your family members who play certain roles? Well, this is them trying to get out of those roles and become their own people and just figure out what they want to do after high school. Pepper's on the swim team and Jack is on the dive team, so they have like interactions at their practices, and they just become really good friends, and then they get together, and it's just really, really good. It's so good, and I just don't have any negative things to say about this book. I thought it was amazing, and I would highly recommend it if you want like a quick, I feel like it would be great for summer, a quick summer read, or if you just like want to smile a lot. I thought this was so good. And then I just have to talk about Tessa Bailey for this 5th slot in my favorite books. I finished her Hot and Hammer series, so I'm going to talk about Love Her or Lose Her and Tools of Engagement. I think I liked Love Her or Lose Her better though. I don't know, I just liked the plot of that one better. I will link videos where I talk about both of these books, but I'm just going to mention the series. So it's called Hot and Hammered because we're following the Castle family and their friends, and this family owns a construction home renovation business. And in the second book, we follow Rosie and Dominic, and they are like a marriage in trouble. Dominic works for the Castle family, and Rosie wants to open her own Argentinian style restaurant, and they have been married for a long time. They're in their like probably mid-20s or so now, but they've been married since they were like 19. Dominic was in the Marines, I believe, so he was deployed, and he's kind of dealing with, it doesn't really get into PTSD, but he just like doesn't like to talk about his time overseas. And his and Rosie's marriage has gotten very cold, and they just like don't talk to each other like they used to, and they used to have all these big dreams, and now it's like they're just living day to day, just getting by. So then Rosie leaves him, but they start doing therapy together. And Tessa Bailey's books are funny, they're like humorous, but they can also like kind of cover some heavier topics, kind of. But they're super steamy. They're so steamy. I just love Tessa Bailey. I feel like she writes the books that are for me. So I loved Love Her or Lose Her, and then Tools for Engagement is kind of like an age gap romance between Bethany, who's one of the sisters in the Castle family, and Wes, who is like this Texas cowboy who comes to their New England Port Jefferson town to help take care of his niece whose mom, his half-sister, just like left her. But Wes is 23 and Bethany's 30, and they have like this age gap kind of like head-butting romance that develops. But the plot for this one, I didn't love it, but a lot of people do. Like a lot of people love this third book as their favorite book. The plot is that Bethany and her older brother, who owns the construction business, they get picked up by this like HGTV style show, and they are like renovating houses and competing against each other to renovate the house best. And I didn't like love that storyline, but the relationships in this are just so good. I love this family, and you know how you feel when you just read the final book in a series and you're like, oh, my friends are so happy now. That's how I feel. So I have to talk about the series. It's so good. I love Tessa Bailey, and that's the 5th book / series I'll talk about. But I have 2 honorable mentions. that I want to bring up because they have just been so good. Ariadne by Jennifer Saint is one of them. I think this is a debut novel from her. But I've been on this huge Greek mythology kick this year, and this is just me continuing with it. This is Ariadne's story, and if you don't know, Ariadne is the daughter of King Minos and Pasiphae, who is a daughter of Helios, and she's also a sister to Circe. So if you've read Circe, you know Pasiphae, and you know Ariadne, and you know King Minos, and you know the Minotaur. So Ariadne's brother or half-brother is the Minotaur. And the first, I guess, conflict in this book is her relationship with Theseus when Theseus comes from Athens to, I think he's from Athens, to slay the Minotaur. But then he abandons her. You know, if you've heard the story. I don't want to spoil anything too much, but this is a story of Ariadne's life. All of it. It's just, I think these books are beautiful. These like Greek mythology, these Greek tragedies, they are just beautiful, and I love them so much because they just make me feel a lot. But this is just a story of a young girl becoming a woman and just things that happen in her life. And then we also actually start following Ariadne's sister, and I can't think of her name, but we get a perspective from her, and she obviously has a tragic story. But there's like happiness too. There's happiness and hopefulness and self-discovery, I guess. This was just so good, and I cried at the end, as you do in Greek stories. And this was a debut novel. I'm pretty sure it was just so good. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This is a thriller, and I loved, L-O-V-E-D, loved the plot of this story. That's why it's on this list. What I did not L-O-V-E is our main character, Jewel. She was so not smart. So the plot of this story is that Jewel is down on her luck. She needs to make some ends meet, and she stumbles upon this too good to be true opportunity to be a house sitter in this very mysterious apartment building in New York. She's getting paid a ton of money, and she gets to live in this swanky building. But this job comes with some stipulations. It has some rules, and one of those rules is that you cannot talk to any of the residents. Do not engage them. Do not talk about who you see living in this building. Like, we're private people here. Don't talk about it. But like the day she starts this job, she recognizes one of the residents and is like all up in their business, like trying to say hello to them. And I'm just like, oh, your lack of rule following is making my rule follower heart really uncomfortable. And then she just started doing all these things that you just know as the reader is just not good. But also, like, you know, it's a book and you've got to create that tension. But my whole being throughout this book was like, I could do such a better job in this than she is. But she is finding out some secrets about this apartment building and about some of the residents, and none of the apartments in this building can like be vacant. So they have a few apartment sitters, and she befriends one of them, and they're like talking about some shady stuff. Not shady stuff, but they just don't feel right in this apartment building. They just don't feel right in it. And then Jewel starts doing some research about it, and then like the ending and like what the apartment building is, I just loved it. I loved it so much. So for that reason, I'm talking about it. Even though our main character was like so cringy. She made me cringe. She made me cringe a lot. But I love the plot. I read this book so fast. I had a great time. I thought the ending was really good. Loved it. Loved that part of it. Still gave it 5 stars. It was so good. I would recommend it if you're looking for a thriller. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. I would love to know. If you have any historical romance recommendations, please leave them below because I'm just eating up that genre right now. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one.